When Paige Bueckers talked about gaining strength and endurance this offseason, the phrasing hit a nerve. Fans immediately recalled Caitlin Clark's struggles after her own body transformation, and the speculation took off from there. Bueckers never mentioned Clark, but in the age of social media, silence says as much as speech. Her words were parsed, debated, and twisted into something bigger, a challenge, maybe even a declaration. Suddenly, a training update became a talking point in a larger, ongoing drama about who's really carrying the torch in women's basketball.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
But what's getting missed in the noise is the heart of Bueckers' message. Her focus is on day-to-day improvement, on bringing value to her team, and earning respect through consistency. The individual accolades? They're not the goal, just the byproduct. And while fans and media may be chasing narratives, Bueckers seems fixed on something simpler, getting better and doing it the right way. There was no dramatic press conference, no fiery tweet, just one interview, one calm voice, and a few phrases that sent the internet into a tailspin. Paige Bueckers talked off-season plans, and suddenly it felt like a new era had officially begun. The quote that set everything off, "It's my time now." Depending on who you ask, it was either a declaration of readiness or a polite way of saying Caitlin Clark's run at the top might be over. The truth? Somewhere in the middle. Paige didn't trash talk. She didn't even bring Caitlin up. What she did do was talk about what she wants, to get stronger, to build muscle, and to work on her three-point shot. Normal stuff for a top-tier athlete. But fans didn't hear normal. They heard, she's coming for Caitlin. Because here's where the timing gets messy. Paige's comments about training and physical improvement dropped at the exact moment people were talking about Caitlin Clark's struggles, particularly after a high-profile body change that noticeably affected her performance. So when Paige mentioned building muscle and working on endurance, it wasn't received as a generic training update. It felt personal. It felt specific, even if it wasn't. Paige emphasized that she doesn't chase individual accolades, that she sees her personal success as a reflection of her team, her coaches, and the system around her. She talked about daily growth, competing the right way, earning respect, about building a winning culture, not just being the star in one. But as anyone following sports knows, it doesn't matter how you intend to say something. It matters how people hear it. And what they heard was Paige drawing a line in the sand. Because while she's all about humility and team goals, she still said it. "It's my time now." That quote was like blood in the water. Fans and media jumped on it, digging for subtext, for shade, for proof that she was responding, intentionally or not, to Caitlin Clark's recent dip in dominance. And it didn't help that comparisons were already brewing. Paige had just come off a rookie season that many called surgical, sharp, smart, consistent. Meanwhile, Caitlin's second season wasn't hitting quite the same. Her body transformation, which was supposed to elevate her game, seemed to have the opposite effect. Her endurance dropped. Her shooting looked off. Her usual firepower wasn't as reliable. Cue the comparisons. Paige talks about working on her strength and three-point game, and fans immediately draw the line straight to Caitlin. Was it subtle shade or just smart training? Either way, the narrative took off, because the contrast was impossible to ignore. Paige, calm and calculated, laying out her plans to build a stronger, more sustainable game. Caitlin, visibly struggling to adapt to a new physical form. And the phrasing, muscle, endurance, paint scoring, those weren't random. They were the exact issues Caitlin had just been criticized for. Whether it was deliberate or not, the overlap felt like more than coincidence. And the media ran with it. Suddenly, the interview wasn't about Paige's offseason anymore. It was about her versus Caitlin, about whether the baton was already being passed, about whether this was the moment we stopped talking about Caitlin Clark as the face of the sport and started looking toward Paige Bueckers as the next one up. The rivalry speculation exploded. Fans took sides. Social media lit up. Some said Paige was just focused on growth. Others insisted she knew exactly what she was doing. But the real tension didn't come from trash talk. It came from contrast. Caitlin has always been the center of attention. Loud games, loud stats, loud headlines. Paige, she's the opposite. Low-key, focused, team-oriented. But when Paige's quiet confidence started to mirror the places where Caitlin was falling short, the comparisons became inevitable. It wasn't that Paige said anything wrong. It's that she said the right things at the exact wrong time for Caitlin. And it doesn't stop there. Paige also opened up about working with a sports psychologist. Not because she was struggling, but because she wants to stay locked in mentally. She talked about being process-oriented, not just chasing results. That mindset alone sparked another round of side-by-side takes. Because while Paige is talking about mental stability and long-term growth, Caitlin's been navigating criticism, burnout, and pressure from every angle. The optics? Paige is thriving. Caitlin's scrambling. Fair or not, that's how fans are framing it. And it's created a rivalry Paige didn't ask for, but now finds herself right in the middle of. And let's be clear, Paige didn't create this narrative. But once she said, "It's my time now," the door was wide open for people to walk through. And they did. Because sports culture loves a changing of the guard. And when the reigning star shows cracks, the spotlight doesn't dim, it just moves. That's where Paige finds herself now. She's the calm storm. The player who's all about consistency, growth, and team success. But she's also the player that fans are now watching like a hawk. Not for improvement, but for dominance. Because the moment you're seen as the heir to the throne, the expectations explode. Every quote gets picked apart. Every game gets overanalyzed. And every move is viewed through the lens of, is she better than Caitlin? It's not just about improvement anymore. It's about proof. The ironic part? Paige has never asked for this kind of attention. She's never been the one to chase headlines. But her performance and her timing have done it for her. Her rookie season didn't just impress people, it set a tone. And now that Caitlin isn't looking invincible, that tone is starting to sound like a takeover. Fans love to create rivalries, especially when women in sports start rising in tandem. There's this constant need to choose one. But the narrative here isn't being fueled by trash talk or media games. It's being driven by contrast. Paige looks like the player Caitlin used to be, steady, confident, in control. And it's no coincidence that all of Paige's comments about muscle, endurance, leadership, mindset hit hardest in the exact areas where Caitlin is under scrutiny. That's why this moment feels like more than just training updates. It feels like a shift. And maybe that's what's making fans respond the way they are. Because Paige's focus on personal growth, her gratitude toward her team, her humility, it doesn't weaken her presence. It strengthens it. It makes her more dangerous. Because she's not chasing attention. She's chasing excellence. And that terrifies people who've already crowned someone else. Paige doesn't need to say, "I'm better." She just has to keep showing up and letting her game do the talking. And based on her own words, that's exactly what she's planning to do. So here we are. One interview, a few simple quotes, and an avalanche of reactions. Whether it was intentional or not, Paige Bueckers just made it clear. She's not waiting in the wings anymore. She's stepping forward. She's ready. And fans are already choosing sides, even if the players aren't. So now it's your turn. Was Paige just focused on her own journey? Or was this the most subtle mic drop in recent memory? Did her words signal the start of a rivalry? Or are we all just reading way too deep into this? Let's talk about it. Hit that like button if you're following the drama. Drop a comment if you think the era has shifted or if Caitlin's still got something left in the tank. And don't forget to subscribe because if this is just the beginning of Paige Bueckers' era, you're going to want to see how it unfolds. And the more you watch this unfold, the clearer it becomes. This isn't just about who has better stats or who wins more games. It's about tone, presence, control. Paige Bueckers walked into this conversation without asking for it, but the minute she said, "It's my time now," the vibe shifted. Not because she was louder than Caitlin Clark, not because she demanded attention, but because she said it with such matter-of-fact calm that it landed. Like a quiet warning shot. Not flashy, not performative, just decisive. You know when someone walks into a room and doesn't say much, but somehow everyone turns to look? That's Paige right now. She didn't throw a punch. She just showed up stronger, more focused, and more prepared than ever. And people felt it. So even if her comments were about personal growth, the effect they had was public chaos. Because this is sports, and context is everything. Her talk about building endurance, that landed differently because Caitlin Clark had literally just been criticized for not being able to maintain hers. Her focus on gaining strength, that hit hard because Caitlin's physical transformation had already become a storyline, with mixed results. So what could have been a routine preseason update turned into something way more explosive. A perceived challenge, a shift in power, the kind of statement that echoes, even if the player didn't yell it. And now, Paige is being watched closely, not just by fans, but by the entire women's basketball world. Because if she really is ready to take over, she'll need more than good intentions and inspiring interviews. She'll need to perform consistently, relentlessly, and under pressure. But here's what's already setting her apart. Paige isn't talking about winning. She's talking about earning respect, earning leadership, earning her place on the team. That's not about hype. That's about process. That's about character. And when fans hear that kind of language right after months of watching Caitlin wrestle with inconsistency and exhaustion, it makes sense why people are starting to recalibrate their expectations. It's not that Caitlin isn't still elite. She is, but elite status comes with weight. And recently, that weight has been harder for her to carry. Meanwhile, Paige is climbing with clarity and control. So while the media keeps spinning this into a rivalry, what's actually happening might be more subtle and maybe even more significant. It's the slow emergence of a different kind of star. One who doesn't need to dominate headlines to dominate the game. One who's building a foundation, not just for a season, but for a career. Because let's not forget, Paige didn't just show up out of nowhere. Her rookie season was solid, sharp, methodical. She didn't need to be explosive. She just needed to be consistent. And that's what coaches love. That's what wins long-term. And now, she's adding layers, physical strength, deeper range, mental endurance. She's not just refining her game. She's fortifying it. Meanwhile, Caitlin's dealing with the fallout of early success. The expectations that come with being the name in the sport. The pressure to always deliver. And it's not fair, but it's real. So when Paige says she's working on her mindset with a sports psychologist, that lands, not just as a smart move, but as another subtle contrast. She's not reacting to burnout. She's preparing to avoid it. And the more she speaks, the more fans start to notice the difference in tone. Not just what Paige says, but how she says it. She talks about competition, but it's not ego-driven. She talks about goals, but they're not centered on fame. She's focused on being respected, on growing, on leading. And in sports, that mindset doesn't just make you a great teammate. It makes you dangerous. So of course people are going to interpret her words through the Caitlin Clark lens. Because right now, Caitlin's narrative is messy, fighting to stay on top, battling through fatigue, trying to find her rhythm again. And Paige is walking in with focus, humility, and momentum. That's why people can't stop talking about this. Because even without direct confrontation, the contrast is loud. Paige didn't shade anyone. She didn't throw darts. But the subtext was powerful. And fans are eating it up. Because let's be real, women's basketball deserves this energy. The debates, the rivalries, the emotional investment. It's part of what grows the game. But what we're seeing with Paige and Caitlin isn't some scripted WWE-style feud. It's organic. It's nuanced. And that makes it even more compelling. Because if Paige is right, and it is her time, then this moment we're living through is bigger than just two players competing. It's a passing of the torch, a new standard being set. But that doesn't mean Caitlin's finished. It means she's now got something she hasn't had in a while, real pressure from someone else. Someone who isn't just flashy. Someone who's strategic, consistent, and building for the long haul. And honestly, that might be the best thing for both of them. Because rivalries, real or imagined, sharpen athletes. They raise the bar. They force players to adapt, to grow, to dig deeper. And if Caitlin wants to stay at the top, Paige's presence is going to force her to evolve. But right now, the conversation belongs to Paige. And whether she meant to spark this fire or not, she's standing in the middle of it. No dramatics, no ego, just one quote. It's my time now. So what comes next? If Paige continues to show up the way she's been talking, stronger, smarter, more prepared, then the balance of power is going to keep shifting. Fans are already watching her differently. They're reading between the lines. They're waiting for confirmation that this wasn't just a moment. It's a movement. And if Caitlyn can bounce back, it sets up one of the most compelling storylines in women's sports in years. Two players, two completely different energies. One spotlight. The noise isn't going away. The speculation isn't slowing down. But at the center of it, there's Paige, calm, steady, and already doing the work. And here's the kicker. This whole situation says more about us than it does about Paige or Caitlyn. Because the second Paige said something remotely confident, the internet did what it always does, ran full speed into a rivalry. The quote, "It's my time now," was like a spark near dry grass. Fans didn't just hear it, they felt it. And whether it was intentional or not, it put a target on Paige's back. Now every move she makes will be magnified. If she dominates, she's proven the hype was real. If she slips even once, people will be lining up to say she couldn't back it up. That's the cost of being in the spotlight, especially when the media is salivating for a narrative. And right now, the narrative is Paige Bueckers quietly stepping into the power position while Caitlin Clark fights to hold on to it. But if you strip away the chaos, the trending hashtags, the clickbait headlines, what's actually happening here is a shift in energy. Caitlin's rise was meteoric, explosive. Everyone watched her climb, fast, and they got used to seeing her there. But fast rises often come with fast expectations, and those are hard to sustain. That's what makes Paige's approach so different. She's not here to explode. She's here to endure. From day one, she's been about building something. She's methodical. She focuses on how she gets better, not just the fact that she does. And when she talks about leadership, respect, and winning culture, it doesn't feel like a soundbite. It feels like a mission statement. And let's not forget, Paige didn't jump into the league looking for attention. Her name has carried weight since before she hit the court. But she's been patient. She's let her game speak. And now, at the exact moment when Caitlyn's dominance is under fire, Paige is rising. Not with noise, but with substance. That's why her off-season comments hit the way they did. She wasn't flexing. She was focused. She talked about strength training, muscle endurance, and upping her range. That should have been normal. But thanks to the timing, coming right after Caitlyn's body-related struggles, wasn't normal. It was pointed, or at least it felt that way. Fans heard Paige talking about doing all the things Caitlyn was criticized for not doing well. That's why the phrase, "It's my time now," hit like a mic drop, even if it wasn't delivered that way. It became a statement, one that, fair or not, has reshaped the conversation. Now, even Paige's humility gets dissected. She says she doesn't chase personal stats, and people say she's contrasting herself with Caitlyn's individualist, stat-heavy reputation. She talks about team dynamics, and suddenly she's framed as the anti-Caitlyn, the quiet leader who elevates others instead of chasing the spotlight. Again, she didn't say that, but fans love subtext, and whether she intended to or not, Paige gave them just enough to work with. And here's where it gets real. This dynamic might be fueled by speculation, but the pressure it creates, that's very real. Paige now has to live up to something she never directly asked for, a legacy shift. She's become the measuring stick for what comes after Caitlyn, even while Caitlyn's still playing. That's not a rivalry. That's a replacement fantasy, and it's exhausting. But so far, Paige seems unfazed, which is exactly why this narrative has so much momentum. She's not scrambling to respond to the chatter. She's not overcorrecting. She's just staying locked in, working on the things she said she would: strength, range, endurance, leadership. And that's what makes it so dramatic, without her ever being dramatic. Meanwhile, Caitlyn has had to navigate the brutal flip side of hype, public critique. She's no longer just the phenom. She's the player people are saying might be losing her edge. And while that pressure's building, Paige is over here calmly talking about growth. So yeah, this isn't just about performance. It's about perception. Paige looks like the player Caitlin used to be. Fresh, focused, and free from distractions. That doesn't mean she's better, but it does mean she's holding the narrative right now. And for a sport that's finally getting the spotlight it deserves, this kind of storyline, it's powerful. It drives interest. It brings in new fans, but also creates unrealistic stakes. Because the truth is, both of these players are elite. Both are still growing, but only one can be the one, at least in the eyes of fans who are desperate to crown a queen. And right now, Paige is wearing that invisible crown, even if she didn't reach for it. She's handling it with poise. She's focused on the process. And when she said, "It's my time now," she didn't just spark debate. She reminded everyone that she's not waiting her turn anymore. She's stepping in. So now the question becomes, how will Caitlin respond? Because if this really is a new era, it's not going to be handed to Paige. She'll have to earn it every game. And if Caitlin isn't done yet, we're in for one of the most fascinating back and forths in recent women's sports history. For now, though, Paige has the floor, and she didn't need to raise her voice to take it. Let me know where you stand. Is Paige just being misunderstood, or was this her way of quietly flipping the power dynamic? Are we witnessing the fall of one era and the rise of another? Or are we just too obsessed with comparing two athletes who are both elite? Drop your take in the comments. Hit that like if you're watching this shift unfold. And be sure to subscribe, because whether this ends in rivalry, redemption, or reinvention, we're only just getting started.